Great stuff, James. Well, the Department of Home Affairs and Mark Dreyfus and others decided that Rita, myself, Tony Abbott and others were also traitors, James, because we went to a CPAC conference last year here in Sydney and they wanted us investigated, and they even threatened Andrew Cooper, the Australian head of CPAC, with jail. Yep. Andrew Cooper's joining us now to give us the latest news. Welcome back to Outsiders. Andrew, how are you?
Well, thanks, Rowan. Thanks for welcoming me back. But how am I? Look, I'm probably feeling a little bit shell-shocked, a little bit like what you are with what's been going on around the globe. But the good news is that CPAC is back for this year. We've pushed it back in the year, and we'll be having CPAC in Sydney again on the 4th of November, which coincides with the US election. And so that should be quite a party, right?
Fantastic, fantastic. So that's on, so November 4th is the CPAC conference. So people can go to the CPAC website and start looking at details. Of course, we better get in touch quickly with Christina Keneally, because you'll remember last year that the brilliant Craig Kelly awarded the Keneally Cup to Christina for her efforts at advertising and promoting the CPAC conference. She did a sterling job, did Christina Keneally. So I hope she'll be back on board to advertise and promote CPAC this year on November the 4th. Now, Andrew, you can't tell us yet all the speakers because obviously with restrictions and all the rest, but I'm sure it'll be a fantastic turnout, and we will do our bit here as well to get some of them onto Outsiders so we can cover all the news. But tell us what's happened since the last CPAC, for example. What was the successes that came out of last year's CPAC?
Well, I mean, the one thing, before I answer that question directly, I just want to say it's amazing. I was naive when I launched CPAC last year. I didn't realise what I was stepping into. It's something that you guys have to deal with all the time. But we had the mob turn up through Antifa and Socialist Alliance. We had the politicians campaign against us through Mark Dreyfus backgrounding the bureaucrats, Christina Keneally and Albanese going off. And we had the bureaucrats attacking, threatening me with jail and attacking yourselves and Tony Abbott because I wouldn't give up confidential information and correspondence with Mark Meadows and Nigel Farage, who was on earlier, which is just crazy, right? But since then, Mark Meadows has gone on and become the chief of staff of Donald Trump.
Yep.
He's right there with Donald. Could you imagine if, I was compelled to give up emails and communications with Mark Meadows to bureaucrats in Canberra? I mean, it's just, who would be meddling in who?
Well, exactly. But also, Andrew, it goes to the point that CPAC is not some crazy right-wing fringe thing that Keneally and the Guardian and all the rest of them, the Sydney Morning Herald, try to paint it as. But in fact, you've got serious players like Farage and Mark Meadows there. Rita?
Well, I'm just wondering about the date. You've coinciding with the US election, and if the polls are accurate, it's going to be a very grim mood there, Andrew. I'm just wondering if this is a wise decision, or are you certain that he is going to prevail come November?
Look, Rita, I heard Nigel grimace. Say that he grimaces occasionally when Trump sends out a tweet, and I think we all share that. But it's a two-party system, and I look at the other guy, right? Now, come on, Rita. Biden can't be a serious presidential candidate, surely.
James.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I know we all know that Joe Biden is hiding out down in his basement autonomous zone or whatever they're calling it these days. But I wanted to talk a bit more about what sort of happened to you with CPAC and the attempts to go after you is being mirrored all over society, in academia, in journalism, and this idea that conservative ideas are now so toxic to certain people that they'll do whatever they can to stop everybody else who might be interested in them from hearing about them. Can you talk to that a bit?
Well, James, I mean, Christina Keneally stood up in the Senate chambers and embarked on a 10-minute diatribe against speakers that were appearing at CPAC. She called it a cavalcade of hate. Tony Abbott, Nigel Farage, Mark Meadows, Janine Pirro, lots of speakers, lots of Australian speakers. That's a cavalcade of hate. This is how intolerant they've become. And the penny didn't drop until I had that conference of just what sort of a tussle, what sort of a war that's being engaged against, traditional kind of conservatism and those that want to honour the values of free speech. and free markets even. I mean, it's a full court press, isn't it? I mean, we're under the pump. We are seriously under the pump here. And I look at CPAC as kind of a line in the sand. There's lots of reasons why we can't have it this year with COVID, with all the things that are going on. But the more I look at what's happening around the world and the more I see what's happening in Australia, I think we must have something like CPAC. We must have that sort of thumbing the nose at this left-wing ideology that's trying to close us all down.
Absolutely. Andrew Cooper, thanks so much. I urge people to go to the CPAC website, check out, particularly getting nearer the date, but book your tickets, get into it because it's a great conference and you never know who might pop up there. Thanks to you, Andrew Cooper.
Thanks, guys. See you there.
Thanks, mate. Coming up, whatever happened to global